Folks, thanks for joining us today. My name is John Dubas with Premier Marketing. We'll be spending the next 50 to 60 minutes discussing systems and a means to follow in order to maximize the opportunity you have in selling Medicare supplement plans. This is a program that integrates different systems into a singular type of purpose in order to help you determine what is most competitive in your market and how to best market and sell in that opportunity. The presentation is being recorded and will be made available on our website at premiersmi.com and on our YouTube channel as well as it uploads into the system. You'll notice that the software system for today's presentation does have a section for both questions and chat. We ask that you put your questions in the questions box. We find that we cover most of them through the course of the presentation ordinarily, but we will make certain to address any inquiries in order to make certain that you get the maximum return on the investment of your time in watching today's presentation. And I thank you for coming on to do so. Today's presentation is aimed at a range of agents, so some of the information may seem a bit repetitive or remedial for some folks, or might be brand new for others, but bear with us because we want to address the needs of a spectrum of folks, and we want to make certain that we do so today. And we'll start by giving a bit of background as to who Premier Marketing is. I recognize some of the names on the attendees, some I do not. Hence, we are a national marketing organization founded in 1968 that's part of the Integrity Marketing Platform. We're licensed in all 50 states, acting as an insurance wholesaler through independent insurance agents such as yourself. And we do so through contracts that are at the highest possible commission levels, with recruiting contracts available to those who qualify. And we do so through a full portfolio of products aimed at the Medicare market and other segments of the industry. The Medicare market includes the base medical programs, the Medicare Advantage and the Medicare Supplement programs, such as we discussed today, and the Part D prescription drug plans, the standalone PDP programs that provide medication coverage to many of the Medicare beneficiaries. But we also offer a full portfolio of life insurance and annuity products, including final expense life insurance and pre-need plans, long and short-term care programs, disability income plans, and ancillary benefits that address the specific needs of a number of your prospects and clients in different categories. The Medicare Advantage programs, it has the national carriers as part of our portfolio and many of the strong regionals that are important for many in their markets. We address this today when we speak of Medicare supplement programs because during the OEP and throughout the year, we find that while Medicare supplement programs are not locked in necessarily in the same fashion as Medicare Advantage, we need to make certain that we understand how that works in order to make certain that we're also delivering upon the programs that might be the best choice for the folks that we address throughout the year. And that same philosophy carries over to the prescription drug plans. Many folks that offer Medicare supplement plans will sometimes just send folks to Medicare.gov for their prescription drug plans. I realize the contracting with this, since many of these contracts, all but a couple, come with a Medicare Advantage contract, the annual certifications is one of the things that keep some MedSup people away from PDP plans. However, these can make a big difference on how you market and the monies that come into your agency. And of course, also serving your prospects and clients in a thorough manner. I mentioned most of these come as part of the MA contract. A couple of exceptions. The Mutual of Omaha program is for their PDP, their drug plan alone, separate from their other programs. And CleverRx is actually a discount program and not a standalone Part D plan. The MedSups, huge variety of programs here for you. And we have programs that you'll find today that are designed to help you be successful in this space. There is a tremendous amount of competition in this area, and it drives the business for all of us. But that also means that we need to be aware of market circumstances. And how do we do that? Well, that's one of the things we talk about today. In the ancillary product area, in each of the categories, you have the national leaders that help you in these areas to address the needs of your prospects and clients. But it not only addresses that need, it also gives you additional marketing opportunities in areas that aren't as heavily regulated as some of the other programs that we just discussed. And of course, it brings an additional stream of revenue to you and your agency. And we want to make certain that as we do so, we're thoroughly explaining the programs that are available to our prospects and clients. And that includes defining the multiple acronyms that are part of our industry. This page is taken from the CMS website, and look, 4,420 acronyms defined in this guide. Well, that gives us a reminder that as agents looking to properly communicate with our prospects and clients, we want to make certain that if we use an acronym, we define it, and we minimize our use of acronyms when possible in order to communicate much more clearly. When we look at the Medicare market, you come on a program like today and we hear the aging of the baby boomers, the silver tsunami, 1 every 10 seconds, 10,000 plus a day. Well, we're also finding that an increasing number of people that are working past the age of 65 or deferring their benefits into Medicare for one reason or another. So the number is scaled down a little bit, but is more than made up for by the population that is accessing the Medicare benefits before the age of 65 because of a disability, and that broadens the market. That is something we need to consider in some of our target markets when we look at the under 65 population, because they are in many states restricted as to certain types of Medicare supplements that they can actually purchase. And so we need to be aware of that and realize that there might be other things we need to do to help that population because they have choices. Someone comes on Medicare, they don't have to do a thing. They can actually decline Part B should they choose to do so. Some for good reasons, because they may be working and have benefits at work that doesn't require that coverage. But some will take the Medicare benefits, self-insure for any other shortfall in the coverage, pick up a standardized Part D plan to help with the prescription drugs and feel they're good and fat and happy. Some of them do that for multiple reasons. Well, they don't want to make another decision is one of them. Another is they don't feel they need the expense of another program because, hey, I'm healthy or I can't afford it. But many then realize that as I first access my Medicare benefits, I have guarantee issue rights or an opportunity to get into programs I may not be able to get into down the road. And that includes the standardized, modernized Medicare supplements. So folks will have that option and then pick up a standalone Part D plan to cover their medications. Some will do the bundling programs of Medicare Advantage where it's all in one. But in each of these choices, we need to be aware of the rationale of the folks, the thinking that they have as to why they're choosing a particular program. And we'll talk about that in just a second. And we have an opportunity to talk about it year round. Why? Well, the majority of people, the vast majority of people that are on Medicare aren't comparing their plans year over year during the annual election period that has such publicity and such a preponderance of TV commercials and everything else that come on there saying, hey, check it out. You got all these wonderful benefits that you might be entitled to. Well, a lot of folks may be watching those commercials or maybe looking at their benefits or may not even be looking at their benefits because they're comfortable with their current situation and aren't reviewing benefits year over year. And that is a common denominator as to whatever type of back coverage they have. You know, if they have a standalone drug plan, in many cases, that means, well, as we talked about with choices, either picked up a drug plan on their own or they got a med sup and a drug plan, because an MA plan, you can't pick a separate PDP program and be in both. So it gives us an indicator of knowing that, well, perhaps if we do contract with Medicare prescription drug plans and we offer reviews on those programs, that may well be our door opener for Medicare supplements as opposed to other campaigns of accessing and the prospects or marketing to that population. It's an alternative. However, we need to be aware of the fact that if we do that, we still are subject to the different guidelines that are more prevalent on the MA PDP side than they are with MedSup. So we need to be careful about compliance and some of the other things we need to do in order to market in such a fashion. But the door is there for us. It's open based on the fact that a whole bunch of people aren't looking at their plans year over year. And many of them will have a rude awakening in January or February or March, somewhere in the first part of the year, when they go to the pharmacy, pick up their medications, and find that perhaps that plan that they've been on for 3 years, well, the formulary has changed, or the drug has been switched from tier 1 to tier 3, or whatever it happens to be. And the prices are way different, and they have dissatisfaction that causes them to shop. So some different things that we need to look at based on, well, factors outside of just, gee, is my Medicare supplement plan $10 cheaper a month than the one that they're on? That sort of thing. Once again, defining the language that we're using can make a big difference as to whether or not we're successful in that pursuit. And then, of course, we need to know not only the acronyms that affect our Medicare supplement market, but the other programs that are out there that we need to address. Why us? Well, beneficiaries aren't using the material that's put out there by the government, be it the Medicare and U book that they get either physically in the mail or electronically, utilizing programs that are available online, the lovely videos that the government has put out to help explain things, and they are very good in many circumstances. They're not being used. So with Medicare supplements, we have an opportunity to engage in the new normal, that quaint term that we've seen so much over the last few years since the pandemic hit. But it's a population that tends to be a little more technically savvy in a lot of areas, or access to that type of technology is available to them. So we have an opportunity to deliver information to the population in a manner in which they prefer. That may be a direct send of comparison programs that we have through some of the software systems that we'll discuss in a little bit. It may be part of programs that we have on a virtual Pearl, a microsite that we attach to our website if we have one, or we use independently to help those folks shop ahead of time. Or it may still well be the old, let's go get elected, sit across the kitchen table, shake hands and kiss some babies and do some information in person. Many times we find it's a combination of the two. But since we have different tools and opportunities to deliver information in a virtual fashion, we can find that we can save our most precious resource, which is our time, by doing a lot of the preliminary work, or even all the way through the sales process, on a virtual basis. And that's because the population's being trained for it. The folks that are aging into Medicare are much more comfortable with technologies that are available than perhaps someone that's been there for 10, 15 years. And we've all been trained on different systems since the pandemic hit. For the longest time, that's how we went to the doctor. It was all a virtual appointment, be it a primary care or a specialist. Some of the preliminary work for hospitals and dentists were handled virtually. Other parts of our life, we celebrate our faith in many circumstances virtually, online. And so we have a population that's much more comfortable in receiving this information, much more savvy in interpreting it, and has the technology to actually utilize it. And that gives us a great advantage, because some of the things that we do may have compliance restraints or concerns that we need to address, and we can do so very efficiently electronically. And of course, delivering the information. It tends to expand your target market in many circumstances. I live in the sovereign state, well, not really the sovereign state, the great state of Texas. 256 counties, something like that. I don't know. Living in North Texas, going clear down into the valley, I mean, that's a trip from the valley to El Paso is longer than a trip from El Paso to Los Angeles. So it's a big stretch of the legs, so to speak. But the license for the state of Texas includes all counties. So is my market all across the state. There are many people out there that will contract in multiple states. Having the electronic delivery systems that are available can make a huge difference on how you do your business. And that gives us an opportunity to expand and become better at what we do through the use of these systems. And while we just finished up the annual election period, where even though much of that is pointed at the Medicare Advantage and prescription drug programs because of the oversight's directed that way, we find that a large percentage of Medicare supplements are also written in that time period because the population's aware of the opportunity to review and change, even though the majority don't. It gives us, however, the mindset of realizing that if someone is opted into a Medicare Advantage plan, they are locked in and locked out of other opportunities. If we want to beat that terminology to death, we have in the first 3 months of the year the open enrollment period that is available for folks that are on an MA plan to switch within plans or to go back to original Medicare. But we have constraints as to how we can market that. And so we need to be aware of it and realize what we can and can't do with that time period. And we did a webinar last week on SEPs that goes into that in great detail, so I won't beat it to death here today. But we also then have the special election periods that allow people to change programs or move back and forth. And knowledge of these programs, including the special election periods, where many of the carriers help us with visibility of these opportunities throughout the year for one reason or another. Hey, in Texas, we got one for drought. Figure that one. It gives us the opportunity then to help people who may be in a managed care program, and those constraints on the network are something they don't want to deal with, and they want a med sup, and they want drug coverage. So it gives us the opportunity to help with that change, should we be able to do so through one of these election periods or special election periods that allow us to change the coverage year throughout the year. Of course, if someone's on a Medicare supplement plan, depending upon your state, it may require underwriting to change them, or there may be other guarantee issue periods that allow us to make that change throughout the year. However, we need to be aware of the entire population, and let's face it, some of the Medicare Advantage folks, you're not going to pry away with a program that has a premium on it, but there are other opportunities for us to be aware of, and we need to know some of the constraints that are placed upon us if we are marketing Medicare supplements only, and how to go about that. So let's look at how we can systematically maximize our Medicare supplement sales. We know that the Bible of sorts, and pardon me, I should have changed the graphic on this from 22 to 23. Well, the Medicare and You book tells us what we have for coverage on Medicare and what does not. It makes a great point of, why do you need additional coverage? Remember, when we looked at the options, there were people that didn't take out any other coverage, perhaps other than the Part D medication coverage, the standalone Part D plans. And that's just one of the needs of the population that's not covered completely by original Medicare. And some folks, well, they look at the grand book that's there and don't look all the way through it, and they don't realize some of the financial exposure that they have. Helping people be aware of the fact that it doesn't cover everything for Part A. They have the deductibles and the co-insurance. You got some massive dollars that can come out of your pocket if you go into the hospital and there's no stop loss on it. And we still have other dollars that we need to come out of pocket for as well when we look at Part B or the doctor's coverage, in a manner of speaking, oversimplifying that coverage. So we also have an opportunity to look at the fact that there are other coverages that they assume are covered and may not be part of our Med Sup offering either. So that gives us an additional opportunity to cross-sell. So speaking of these different programs, and because Medicare Supplements, if you do a presentation specifically for them and don't speak to Medicare Advantage or prescription drug plans during that presentation, you don't need a scope of appointment, and you can discuss all of these in the same appointment without compliance concerns. However, if you start talking about these programs, and someone will say, well, what about my drug coverage? That gives you the opportunity to complete a scope of appointment at that point in time electronically, store it through some of the tools we'll talk about in a little bit. All of these are still health programs to a degree. And that gives us the opportunity to discuss many of them through that first appointment as well. We have certain constraints where we can't talk about life insurance or long-term care, but we can talk about dental, vision, hearing, some of the other things, and just be aware of the fact that as we're in our presentation, we may need to pivot a wee bit and cover ourselves for compliance and to make certain that it sets up the discussion across the board. Because once again, we're looking at the different options that they have and how do we best address them. What we've seen as people come into Medicare, in the past, there's been a fairly even split between Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement plans when someone is first accessing Medicare benefits. Note, I didn't say just aging in, because you have the late to Medicare seniors. These may be the folks that deferred the Part B that I referred to earlier. We saw a pretty even split as to where they went. And this is an older study from Depth Research. What we've seen post-pandemic is a little bit of a up in this area, a little bit of a down in this area, but still a strong market in this particular portion. And remember, original Medicare only doesn't mean they have just original Medicare. They might be dual beneficiaries with Medicare and Medicaid. They might be accessing coverage through the Veterans Administration. They might have retiree coverage. There's a number of reasons why someone might fall in this category, but the choices here are what are of primary concern for us, because this is a market that a lot of times you're looking at, well, a person wants to shop because the premium went up. You have the tools that can address that. You have the product that can address that. And are we aware of how we can do this efficiently in order to get the most out of our work day? Go back and I emphasize this once again, because the prescription drug coverage, as not part of the original Medicare package of benefits, many folks that offer MedSup programs only. I'm a MedSup agent. I would strongly urge you not to ignore this category, because it, one, provides the service that's desperately needed by your prospects and clients. Two, it shuts the door from other agents coming into your client's home. And three, it creates that additional revenue for yourself and your agency. So you've got a number of reasons to move beyond just Medicare supplements, be it into PDPs alone or offering MA programs as well. Because, well, back in the old days when I worked for Prudential, longer ago than I care to admit, the talk was, well, what is the best life insurance program? It's one that's in effect when you need it. And that's kind of what we look at with some of the medical coverages with the Medicare population. They may want a Medicare supplement program, but the premiums for that and a prescription drug plan may stretch their budget beyond the breaking point. So we got to be aware of what we're doing in that area as well, because one size doesn't fit all. The wallets are different, the preferences are different, and our mindset needs to be in the shoes of the folks that we are visiting with. So knowing some of the differences between Medicare supplements and Medicare Advantage plans, there are many folks that will say, why would I ever sell a Medicare supplement when it has that hefty premium? And I've got a plan here that, in the words of J.J. Walker on television, it's free. And then you have folks that will say, why would I ever offer a Medicare Advantage plan when you have those network constraints and all the other things that come with a Medicare Advantage plan? Well, we need to put ourselves in the shoes of the people that we're visiting with and remember that there are differences on how we can market. So having both can be very helpful. There are some differences as to the needs of our prospects and clients, of course. And so we want to make certain that we're doing the best that we can for them, as opposed to looking to shoehorn them into one plan or another. Different places that we can go with both programs, being aware of them, even if you're not specializing in one area or another, it's very important. We also want to make certain that we realize that sometimes folks just don't have it in their budget for a $150, $200+ a month premium for a health program. once they're on a fixed income. And that is a big draw for many of the Medicare Advantage programs because many of them don't require an additional premium. Other costs, yes, but we then gives us an idea as to how we target market our population. If we're throwing out a net at Medicare beneficiaries only without regard to income, we're wasting our dollars, of course. Why am I telling you that? I'm preaching to the choir there. You know that. There are some areas where, yeah, they'd like a med-sup, but they can't afford it. So let's look at some of the things that are parameters we need to engage in order to properly market to the Medicare supplement population, because they tend to be higher income. And you will see also, even if it might be a little lower income, perhaps they're in a rural area that doesn't have a competitive managed care program. And we see that need or that constraint diminishing a wee bit as some of the Medicare Advantage programs are now more widely available than they have in the past. But it then again gives us another reason to carefully examine how we market. And this can be a big deal for us in order to get the best returns that we have on some tried and true situations that, well, means of marketing that don't work like they used to, or at least to the extent that they used to. We also need to be aware of the whole changes that were brought about by recent legislation, that if you didn't have Medicare before January 1st of 2020, well, there are only certain plans that you can have that older folks or folks that have been on Medicare longer have more choices. So we want to make certain that we are also looking at the plan types that we're offering and realize that if we are engaging with a person who has had a plan F for a period of time, is now experiencing some plan rate increases, that we can still sell them a plan F. Plans are available to that population. It's those folks that were first eligible for Medicare after 2020 that plan is limited, and as is C as well. So we need to make certain that we're aware of the fact that, well, gee, the G is really, pun intended, no, not really. G is really popular now, Plan G. It may not be the answer for everyone in every market, because there are certain carriers that are still pursuing the Plan F. Why? Well, in many markets, they're underwritten, so they can more carefully address claims and things of that nature and maintain a solid premium. Other carriers don't have that same philosophy. That's why having a solid quoting engine, tools that we can use to differentiate between the types, and be able to use that tool to properly explain plan choices to our target audience, well, gee, that's a huge difference. We can make a solid case for a sit down, full presentation, as opposed to I'm selling, you buying type of situation. We also need to be aware of the fact that there are different standardized programs in certain states. So Massachusetts, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, if you're marketing in those particular states, those Medigap policies are standardized in a different way than they are in any other part of the country. So that makes a difference as to how we market in those areas. Obviously, if you live in those areas, you market in those areas, you know that. But other folks may not, and they may be looking at, well, gee, I've got a great opportunity for some folks in Wisconsin. I want to work with Medicare Supplements in that state. Well, if you haven't in the past, be aware of what you can and cannot do when it comes to standardized programs. And there are certain requirements placed on Medigap companies as to what plans they have to offer. They don't have to offer every Medigap plan, but there are circumstances where they have to offer the Medicare Plan A if they offer other Medigap plans in the state that is being targeted. Why do we care? Plan A kind of, oh, that's expensive. It doesn't have a lot of benefits anyway. In many circumstances, go back to that, gee, what's part of the Medicare population, the under 65 folks? In many states, that's the only med-sup plan they can take. Is that their best option? So we need to be aware of that. So we have different things that come into play that we have to take into consideration, including perhaps some spell check here, it appears. We also need to be aware of the differences between open enrollment and guarantee issue. And while these are situational in nature, CMS has defined the general differences between these, where an open enrollment situation is a one-time only 6-month period when federal law allows you to buy a Medigap Medicare Supplement insurance policy that's sold in the state. Remember, not all plans are necessarily sold in all states. It starts the first month that an individual is covered under Part B and you're 65 or older. During that time period, you can't be denied a Medigap policy or charged more because of past or present health problems. And some states may have additional open enrollment rights under state law. So this is an important reason why many people carefully consider a Medicare supplement plan when they're first eligible. They may have health circumstances and they realize that if it gets to a situation where they're being underwritten, they're not going to get a policy. We got to exercise this right in the states and take advantage of it moving forward. It's important to note, however, that that has that time constraint in which that period is open. It's also important for us as agents to realize that open enrollment applications may be, in most cases are, handled differently when it comes to us for our compensation. Commissions may be non-existent or nominal in either of these situations. There are different companies that handle it differently, so we need to be aware of that. When we look at the guarantee issue rights, these are rights where an individual has in certain situations, perhaps when they lose other health coverage, like when insurance companies are required by law to sell or offer a Medigap policy. In these situations, the insurance company can't deny the individual that policy or place conditions on a Medigap, such as exclusions for pre-existing conditions, and can't charge more for a Medigap policy because of past or present health programs. So some of it sounds a lot like the open enrollment, and it does offer some of the same rights and privileges, shall I say, but the timing is the difference in these. And much like the open enrollment period, GI policies, guarantee issue policies, have commission differences. So we need to be aware of that and how that affects our marketing moving forward. It is important to realize too that there are still some Medicare Select programs out there, and they may be a source of confusion for certain agents that haven't run across them in the past. Medicare Select programs in many circumstances act exactly like a Medigap policy, but the difference is for planned procedures for hospitalization. These Medigap Select policies tend to be a little less expensive where offered, but we see them, the offerings, they're just not as common as they used to be. So some things that can make a difference there. If you do run across someone who is in a Medicare supplement program, they have that right to change their mind and switch to a standard Medigap policy within the first 12 months of having that prior program. I mentioned too that different states may have different regulations. So we see on this slide that some states may have extra Medigap open enrollment windows, and the rules will vary from state to state. So it's important for you, if you're living in or marketing in a particular state, what those are. And what that does in when it comes to the offerings that are there, some insurance companies will not operate in those states for some of these reasons. And if they do, it affects the premiums that may be a part and parcel of that Medicare supplement offering. So we look at these different things and it says Medicare or birthday rule. What's that? Well, the month of your birthday, you have an open enrollment opportunity. And you'll see that in certain states, Missouri, you have an anniversary rule. You know, that's the month where you took out your policy, you have an opportunity when that renews to have an open enrollment as well. And you'll see that in Washington, it's a year-round open enrollment opportunity. When you see that year-round opportunities, well, those are states that may have a different type of premium structure than what you will see in other states as well, because they can't underwrite for risk, the insurance companies. And so that makes a big difference, because whatever we want to say about the cost of insurance, They got to have the premium in play to make certain that they can pay the claims and have a little piece of pie, wet my beak, like they used to say on the mob movies, whatever it is. So it affects the premiums in those states. And you'll see when someone moves from one of these states to one of the others that don't have that same open enrollment opportunity, the premium differences can be, in some cases, substantial. So why do people change Medigap policies? Why do they change? Well, one of the reasons that CMS puts out there is perhaps you're paying for benefits you don't need. I haven't run across that too bloody often. Or there may be an opportunity for you to realize that I need more benefits than what I have. So you have a plan type that isn't as all-inclusive as others. That is a little more prevalent than going the other way. Or you have a Medicare policy and a Medigap policy in effect, but you want to change the insurance company. Well, that might be because of philosophical differences or perhaps service challenges or whatever it happens to be. But one of the reasons we see, as David Letterman used to say in his TV show, the top reason, well, we're looking for something that's a little less expensive. And that's where having tools to lay out different prices and compare plan types can make a big difference for us as agents in being successful in marketing these programs. That also gives us an idea of, oh boy, in our target market, there are multiple companies here. I don't have all the contracts. Perhaps I need to pick up some additional help in that area. Switching, well, you got that 30-day free look. We realize that. The government counsels folks not to cancel the Medigap policy until they decided to keep the second one that's been issued. Because keep in mind, just because someone has a Medigap policy and they're taking out a new one, if they don't pass underwriting on the new one, you certainly don't want them dropping the old one before the new one comes into play. We want to protect our prospects and clients in whatever circumstance comes into play. And that includes being aware of and addressing that 30-day free look period that someone has when they buy a new program. This, once again, we're rolling into where are we targeting these folks when it comes to income. Because if you're one of those individuals that still have a strong relationship with Ma Bell, you don't mind cold calling, because you can cold call for MedSups, you can't for MA or PDP, taking into account the changes that have been brought about with do not call laws, all these shops that are perhaps dialing illegally and creating an atmosphere that, well, gee, I'm not answering that phone call because it pops up as possible spam. I'm not on Medicare, and we're just into the afternoon. I've already had 4 of those calls today. None of them compliant. If you're one of the folks that do smile and dial, you have to realize that perhaps we need to point at certain income groups in order to make that as effective as possible. But as we march up the income scale, perhaps those are folks that won't answer their phone like they used to, or it pops up with I'm blocked or whatever it happens to be. So we need to be aware of not only the income that is part of our target market most commonly, but also how the ramifications of that income might have on our marketing methods. When we look at Medigap policyholders by age, well, gee, we talked about in many cases, the only program that's available for folks under 65 is a Plan A. It's pretty well reflected in the percentage of folks that have a Medicare Supplement plan. You'll see then that the age that is most likely to have a MedSups, that 10-year period when you're first coming on Medicare because of age, you'll see that the percentage drops as people get older. Part of that might be because of the pointing of certain marketing efforts by the insurance companies. They don't want the folks on older business, perhaps, or the fact that as they get older, their income has stayed constrained and they can no longer afford the premiums, or they may be going into a long-term care facility where a MedSup is not something that's necessary for them. So these are circumstances that tell us that, oh, gee, well, maybe I ought to target certain areas based on age as well. Boy, there's an earth-shattering idea for you. But there may be certain areas where an older population is still pursued by a certain carrier or two, and that gives us a unique opportunity to pursue that group. Because as Alexander is offering here or asking us here, there's not a penalty per se on the premium for getting in to these programs. The difference would be if the person has the opportunity to enroll in a program, but they have health issues, does that company accept or decline, or do they rate up, or what it happens to be? There's not a penalty per se imposed by the government, but there may be ramifications to the premium brought about by the underwriting procedures of a particular company, not dictated by the government, dictated by how the company does business. So we look at some of the different plan types that come into play. The vast majority of folks now, new ones, are buying the Plan G because it's the most comprehensive coverage. A whole bunch of carriers are chasing that business. It's a very competitive market. But there are still a strong percentage of folks that are in that Plan F world. So if we look back a stage and we look at that 65 to 74-year-olds, we have to look at, okay, were they eligible for a Plan F when they first come on Medicare? So you can take out people from 65 to 67 to look at that for a Plan F offering, because unless they were disabled and had Medicare before the age of 65, they can't get that plan. But if we look to market a Plan F, we can look at, let's say, 67.5-year-olds up to maybe 74s, and we are looking at a apples to apples comparison with Plan F premium. And that can be a very viable way for us to point our marketing efforts based on age and the type of program, that the type of plan that the beneficiary is eligible for. You also have a division of the market. And so this goes into, well, what do I need in my portfolio in order to properly address the needs of our prospects and clients by the competitive nature of this market in my area? Well, you look at this and you go, gee, who owns this world? There are folks out there that don't like four initials, AARP. But I got to tell you, in some markets, they are very competitive. They have two different types of programs now, one with the bells and whistles, one without, depending upon the state, whether or not you can offer both. But the underwriting on them tend to be a little easier than some of the other programs. And that can make a difference for you in whether or not that's your first choice of a med sup, or it's one you keep in your pocket in order to make certain that you can address the needs of a prospect when they may not qualify medically for another program. Outside of the fact they advertise all over the place, and gee, there are different arms of the contracting with AARP. Take the political side out of it if you could, but different reasons why you want that as part of your program. We look at that lovely green piece, we're looking at CVS Group. Well, a lot of those are the Aetna-based programs, a big push with a lot of those. Some of them are very, very aggressive in different areas, so it can make a big difference. And then you look at, gee, 10%, we're looking at Cigna. Yep, great programs in many areas, very competitive. We're looking at 7% in the greenies. Where are we here? Well, those are, oh, gee, the 30% was other. This is the CVS piece. That 5% in the purple, we're looking at Anthem, Elevance, AmeriLife, AmeriGroup, pardon me. That was Freudian. Different pieces that can come into play. So you have a big portion of the market that is covered by what you want to refer to, perhaps, or might be referred to as name brand companies. The rest of the market is divided up with some of the smaller organizations that might be out there carving their own niche. So this is an indicator of what you need in your portfolio in many circumstances. There are some folks that won't take out a policy from Nightlife of Georgia. I don't know who they are. I don't know how they operate. I have Blue Cross Blue Shield in my area. I've had it forever. That's what I had when I worked. That's what I want. They may not even look at premium differences, or they might look at how the premium changes throughout the year. So some things we need to be aware of on how we address our portfolio and the offerings that we're putting forward. So it gives you an idea in this particular area. Once again, a reiteration of where the plan types normally are. And right about now, if I were to take something out of the nether regions and say what's selling, F, G, N, some C. But you see this. In 2021, over 90% of the participating companies sold plan F, G, and N with A because it's that requirement. Well, there's your plans that are most commonly in play. Are you going to look and explain other plan types? And if so, is that to your best interest? Might be, but keep in mind what most people with a Medicare supplement plan already have in play. So let's look at some of the things that we can do, pardon me, when it comes to, now you guys don't really care about that, do you? How we can determine things that come into play. This system that I'm opening right now is available to agents contracted with our organization, and it's one of the 3 systems that are available through Medicare Center. It's the CSG tool that the vast majority of people in the Medicare supplement world, when they come to use a quoting device that's not proprietary to a particular carrier, this is what they're using. It gives us a great opportunity to determine what we need in our portfolio as an agent, but also how we can conduct a complimentary Medicare supplement review. It gives us all kinds of detail that comes into play. It gives us updates as to what is happening in the market and the e-application cycles that come through and are made available through the system. E-apps are wonderful. You can't submit them unless they're complete and clean, and we don't have to worry about our handwriting, plain and simple. Can't submit them if they're incomplete. It helps the folks get their policy more quickly, and it helps us get paid more quickly as well. So let's look at some of what we can do with Medicare supplement plans and how we can come about running a quote. And I got to tell you, I'm not the most technically adept person in the world, and if I can use this, you most certainly can. Many of you probably already do, but humor me just a little bit. I'm going to plug in just some information based on, whatever. We're basing this on an area. Well, I live in this zip code. And let's look at a non-smoking, non-tobacco using a lady who's 70 years old. And because she's 70, she still qualifies for that Plan F. She lives alone. She's now widowed. So we don't have a household discount that comes into play. What's it going to cost her in that zip code with an effective date? Let's put it at the 1st of the year. What is that? Less than a minute of entering in information. And it's going to think a little bit pretty quickly, and it's going to roll out the plans that are available in that zip code. I've got it set up to, well, it's going to tell us, yeah, here's the e-apps. It's going to tell us how things are in that area based on premium. All right, still battling the tail end of a cold, so I'm coughing. I mute myself. We see an offering here from Allstate. What is this? Well, that's the National General product. All the Allstate health options, and we can see that it's very, very competitive in this area. We then have ACE, which is underwritten by Chubb. Once again, very, very competitive. And then we go into Medico, another program by Allstate. We have the SBI programs. So it lays out all of these different companies that are out there offering the Medicare supplement in that market. It's telling us a number of things. Well, gee, we better have some of these programs in our book of tricks, so to speak, and be prepared to explain the differences between these as well. And what does that mean to us as to what data can this supply for us to explain this beyond just premiums? Well, let's add in some market analysis. And that's going to tell us some wonderful things about these programs. It's going to tell us how long someone's been in operation. So has there been an increased history? No. Why? Well, they haven't been out long enough to see that. It doesn't have some of the market data because it's a new program. You can see the increases that are built into that supplement program based on age, not just market experience, because they can't raise a premium for a single individual. It has to be for the entire class. But they can lay into things that as you get older, the premium's going to increase on that program. So that gives us the detail that we need in order to properly explain that program. This is like, hey, come out very solid financially because we have AM Best at A+. So we know that it's solid financially, even though we can't speak to an increase history or what market share they have. If we go to some other programs, and you'll see some of those that come in as inexpensively as possible, that's a common denominator. They tend to be new offerings. But as we roll into some of the other programs, and I'm scrolling through for a particular one just because it's got those 4 initials. It's the big one in the market, any market, because of its size. Look at some of the numbers that come into play. So we see here, for example, Aflac, a name that many people recognize with the duck and their ancillary products on TV with Nick Saban and Prime and all else that comes into that. You'll see there that here's their dollars that they have in play, the number of lives nationally and on as in a particular state, and the premium dollars that are in play. And that's a nice little market, but it's still a pretty new plan. We go and we look at some of these other programs that have been around longer. We see a much larger number of lives, a much larger amount of premium that's coming in. We see different loss ratios that may be very, very favorable. And what does this tell us? Well, we're not actually actuaries, but that gives us an indication as to whether or not that company can absorb a big claim or a number of big claims and maintain premium at a solid level, because we want to see those increases, if possible, in single digits, and it doesn't always work that way. So let's look then at, and I'm sorry because I'm cruising for a particular piece. Here you goes one of them. I'm a little older than I care to admit in certain circumstances. So Mutual of Omaha and Marlon Perkins and his Wild Kingdom, and it takes a licking and keeps on ticking. The Timex commercials that come into play. Look at the size difference of the lives that are in play and the premium dollars that are there. That's a huge difference as to how the rates may be come into play. So you've got a smaller age increase built into that policy, and you don't necessarily, depending upon how long it is, what is the increase history with it. Bear with me because I'm getting to it here sooner or later. Boom. Look at that premium that is there, the number of lives that are there. And this is the recent. So keep in mind, EAP right now has 2 different options that are available. This is the one that's only been on the market for 2 years. They've already consumed a large part of the market with this plan, and it's reflected in the lives and the dollars that come into play. You look at their other program, the one that's been around for forever. Holy cow, that's a lot of premium. That's a lot of lives. That's a very small annual increase built into the programs, either by age or by claim history. And that's one of the reasons why certain folks will look at certain carriers, because it's not just the premium they pay now, it's the premium they pay throughout their stay in that policy. And you will see many of the folks that are much more comfortable with a name one way or another, and they'll want to stay there. What does that mean to us as agents? Well, in this particular instance, you got a lifetime commission on this program. Keep in mind, after 7 years, it's not a huge percentage, but it's still a payment that's made to us. But it's a person that, as we address them on an annual review basis, they're going to be comfortable with this plan because they haven't seen a big increase. And I'm not pitching AARP. I'm pitching any of these programs that have a small annual increase. And that's something we need to take into account when we look to market, because then we don't have to rewrite business all the time. Or as a person ages, and we're in year 6 or 7 of a policy, well, that might be then an opportunity for a rewrite because the premium rates are now enough to disturb the person to make a change. And that's something that we really need to consider because it goes beyond AARP. I'm looking for non-Amerigroup. Look at that. Solid premiums, no increase history. Wow. Here you go. This is one in the state of Texas. The HCSC contract for Blue Cross, it's 5 states. In Texas and Illinois particularly, it's a big part of the market. Premium increases are nominal. They're not by any stretch of the imagination the least expensive, but many folks will purchase this because of those 4 letters and this fact. And that's something we need to consider, because then as we do our annual reviews, we want to block out anyone else taking our business away, but we also want to make certain that it gives us the opportunity then to address their prescription coverage needs, or perhaps other coverages we have as part of our portfolio, going into the cross-selling notion of, well, you need some dental coverage. They got a dental discount program on some of these med sups, but it's not the dollars that are being thrown about by Medicare Advantage plans. In all honesty, if you're selling a Medicare Advantage plan with a dental program, they're not paying you anything extra for the dental coverage. You have standalone dental programs that can make a huge difference. And it may bring about a discussion for long-term care. Because remember, one of the things that's not covered by original Medicare, and if it's not covered by original Medicare, it's not covered in most circumstances by the med sup, no long-term care coverage or short-term care coverage. So it brings other products in play that you can discuss and increase your influence in that household. Because remember, the more programs you have in a household, the better your retention is going to be. You don't have to be with the same company. You just have to be with the same agent, and that's you. So let's take into account some things that are not Medicare supplement plans and shouldn't be addressed as such. MA plans, the Medicare Advantage plans, the prescription drug programs, Medicaid, employer or union plans, TRICARE, veterans benefits, programs for Native Americans, long-term care policies. They're not Medicare supplement plans. They are other programs that address the need, and they should not be referenced as a med sup. It does, however, as I mentioned, the med sups that we do offer give us that opportunity for other coverages that we can offer. So those PDP programs, once again, I understand you got to do an annual certification. You got to make certain that you do certain things when you market if you're bringing PDP plans into play, but it is a program that they're gonna ask about. And there are some folks, if they have med sups, they travel outside the country. Some med sups will give limited coverage on international travel. That may give you an opportunity to offer travel insurance. Long and short-term care, we've already discussed. Hospital indemnity plans with a med sup, what are you, wacko, John? Well, yeah, I am, but hospital indemnity plans pay in addition to any other program that's out there. And many of the challenges folks have when they go into the hospital are not just medical expenses. They're the costs that come with that hospital stay. And those are addressed by both hospital indemnity plans and critical illness programs, which include cancer programs. So something to consider there as well. And that may be part of a discussion that you have when you're doing fact finding, where someone says, man, I was in the hospital 2 years ago, and the costs on some of these things outside of the bills I got, well, there's an opening for you. Or it's like, oh man, my sister-in-law, she just passed from pancreatic cancer. Things got so expensive. Opening the door for critical illness programs, not to be some kind of vulture circling, but it's something to address a need recognized by your prospecting clients. And some of these are evident. I remember visiting with a person in their home, and we talked about dental coverage. He reached in his mouth, pulled out the top plate, set it on the table, and said, "That's my dental." I don't need dental coverage. So do they ever break? Do you ever need to reline them? You know, there are things you can do with a back retort, but things to keep in mind on other coverages that can be offered for you. We do offer different guides. I apologize, I'm going a little long here. I'm going to speed up. But we have guides too that can help you, that are built by Premier to cross-sell based on having Medicare Supplements as your base program. So when you speak with your marketer with Premier, your agent success manager, ask for this, because this is available to you. It's available on our website as well, but it can help you in cross-selling and creating a marketing opportunity for yourself based on what you know and how to bring about an opportunity to present these other programs as well. Because once again, more programs you have in the house, the better your retention is going to be. And commissions on these programs can be very, very strong. They vary from company to company. There may be marketing programs that come into play as well. But the question as well is, when do you get paid? Well, it's when they're issued. And many folks, as they market MA plans during annual election period, they're aware of, but not too terribly fond of the fact they don't get paid until after the first of the year with those plans. Well, that's when the plan goes into effect. So it's kind of the same thing, but Med Sups, in many cases, you're talking about today being the 22nd of December. I'm writing a Medicare supplement plan with a 1/1 effective date. Gee, I'm getting paid quickly, relatively speaking. And you'll see that there are commissions that come into play as well on those PDP programs. You have an opportunity in the Med Sup arena where you can have the premiums advanced, or you can do them as earned. Well, if you're doing an annual premium, fine. The chain danger you have is if that person has a celestial discharge during the year, they're going to come and recapture part of it if they die. But how you model how you're paid can make a difference on how your agency performs as well. So something to consider in that area. You do have presentations you can use with the public. You know, so there are confusions out there in the marketplace about Medicare supplements. CMS has a PowerPoint you can use in a webinar or seminar for Med Sups. They have one for PDP programs as well that can help us as Med Sup agents if we need a little bit of a refresher or feel comfortable as to a track to follow on how to present those programs. But they're there to help you market as well. And we'll talk about some of those things as well a little bit down the line. This is that tool that I referred to earlier, the Medicare Center program, that has the CSG component with it. So it's one of those three quoting tools within that you can access through a single login. You can do the side-by-side comparisons. That's something I didn't show on the website, where you can click three of them and kick out that comparison and save it in a PDF or download it into an Excel file for yourself, and it'll show all plan types. But it gives you then that opportunity. And you can do a compliant presentation if you're bringing in the PDP programs as well by collecting that scope of appointment. And guys, don't be afraid of, guys and gals, don't be afraid of scope of appointment, because it has all those other products on there. You mark them, it gives you an opportunity to talk about a whole bunch of things in a single appointment if the opportunity presents, if you set it up correctly. But it'll take and it'll store those for you for that 10-year period. And if you're speaking to the population who are on an MA or a PDP program and you're recording that call, as you are required to now, it will record it for you and store it as well. Agents that have access to this program do have that Pearl that I mentioned. That's that microsite where people can go and compare programs. And if they shop on their own and buy through that site and it's pointed to you, you get the commission. It also has that contact management system within it. So you can do your annual reviews easily. You're talking about medications. Well, you can go through and say, hey, these are the medications we talked about last year. Are there changes this year? Do we need to address different programs that might handle those expenses better for you? And some of them are designated by switcher tags saying these are the ones that are most susceptible for someone to swipe from you, or that person from they may move. So we need to keep that in mind. The Lead Center program is where you can buy leads through this system. We'll talk about that in detail in just a second. and it has different resources in there as well. Sales scripts, talking points on addressing different products help us be better at selling or better at addressing the needs of the folks that we're visiting with. It is available as a mobile application. And then once again, as JJ Walker says on television, driving me nuts, it's free. No cost to agents that are contracted to us or our partners. This gives us that opportunity to go in and look at the different programs that are available and how we quote through this system. It's got some really cool things in there that helps us cross-sell as well. So utilizing this can really create a lead generation piece for us as well. A great way to help us maximize our opportunities in here, because you have a plugin available from CSG as well, where you can put it on your website. They can go in, they can quote themselves on the carriers that you designate. So they're shopping on their own. They enroll through this. Once again, much like the microsite that's generally available, you get the credit for the sale. Why do you do this through us? Well, let me check really quickly to make certain there aren't questions that I haven't addressed. In the meantime, we're good. We'll go through this really quickly and finish up. I apologize, I'm over the hour. Contracting is simple, can be simple. We do things electronically as much as possible because it speeds up the process. You can create an agent profile, put it in SureLC, SuranceBay, whatever you want to call it, and pick companies on which to contract electronically. Not all companies participate in this system. The vast majority do. But if you're looking at a particular carrier, in many circumstances, they may have an electronic link we will use in lieu of this in order to do things as quickly as possible. Errors and admissions coverage is required for about every insurance program in the world right about now. We offer discounted E&O for qualified agents. What makes you a qualified agent? Well, you got a contract with us. But this is a program you own. Premier is a huge organization. We offer a ton of programs. We don't offer everything everywhere. No one does. I don't care what someone tells you. This gives you the opportunity to own the protection and protect you and satisfy that requirement with the insurance companies, regardless of whom you contract through. We do also offer discounted continuing education programs to keep your license in play through our association with WebCE. We also offer an opportunity for you to pick up a modified guarantee issued disability income program on yourself on which you're paid a commission. You're protecting your own ability to earn. Much as where today's presentation is being recorded, past presentations have been as well. They're available on our website and on our YouTube channel. Keep in mind, we threw out that piece where, hey, here's a presentation on MedSups. You can do the same thing with PDP programs. To who? How do we do that? Well, we have systems in there or programs in there that we discuss on how to approach faith-based organizations, visit with providers, other centers of influence in the community to prospect and utilize that as part of a regular activity in our own systems to stay in front of the community that we're looking to market. Once again, I cannot overemphasize the value of Medicare Center and the systems that come with it and how it can be of great value to you. There are different programs that are offered with additional incentives. In the Medicare supplement world, that's a fairly common practice. So based on a carrier and their marketing of a particular time period, they may offer additional dollars if you do a certain number of applications a month and pay you cash dollars on that in addition to your commissions. We want to make certain that you know those programs and how to access them. So we have a page on our website that tells you. And in many cases, those help you qualify for carrier trips with those organizations, and they may help you qualify as well for premier incentive programs. That includes the return of our trip that we have every year or had every year until the lovely pandemic hit. So some things that can come into play that if that is your cup of tea, gee, you might qualify for multiple trips. Keep in mind, ours isn't one of those we beat you down with constant meetings and you don't really have a trip. You have a floating hotel or whatever it happens to be. A great way for you to add to your compensation package. We also offer other lead programs that come into play, including a call list, because you can cold call for med subs, you can cold call for dental programs, you can't cold call for MA or PEDP plans, no matter what some of these offshore organizations do. We can provide that to you, butt it up against do not call, keep you legal, low, no cost, depending upon your contracting situation with us. And as I mentioned, help in marketing through those centers of influence in your community. Some carriers do generate prospects for you as well. That tends to be most common with MA or PDP carriers, so something to consider there. We do have an internet lead program in addition to the other things we talked about, direct mail support, lead center once again, a T65 locator, which is really cool. I'll talk about that in a minute, and a system to maximize your referrals from any one lead. Nothing like casting your bread upon the water and having it multiply. You got a lead come in, utilizing systems to have them invite other people to your presentation or visit with you thereafter on the programs you offer. That's an invaluable lead program. The direct mail piece is a discounted program based on your income based on your production. And it gives you the opportunity then to do this consistently, because that's the difference. Mail returns on certain lead programs are down. Some of them, they're not. It all depends on how you work with an organization and how you work targeting that population. That's why we went through some of that thing in detail about income and ages, because we want to properly set the parameters for our mail campaign to make it as effective as possible. And we do so through vetted preferred lead vendors. We want to make certain they have the systems to get those leads back to you as quickly as possible, and that the outreach they're using is still compliant. They're not offering, okay, you want the state of Rhode Island, make an appointment with me. That doesn't work for more than one reason. But we want to make certain that we do things on the up and up. We do also have the opportunity for you to purchase direct mail leads that come back fresh or a little aged, based on a mail campaign where the leads have never been worked. These costs do vary from time to time and from area to area, but it's a great way for you to fill your calendar on direct mail leads. And keep in mind, when we look at direct mail, be it through a system that we control or when we're purchasing responses, it's different than the internet leads in the fact that, well, gee, you guys have worked mail leads before. They don't expect a response in the next 5 minutes. The internet leads might be a different circumstance. I have a friend that got a lead off the internet, off Facebook, at 2 o'clock in the morning. She called them at 6 in the morning. They had already gone someplace else. It's a microwave response, but they're expecting a microwave response for you as well. So we want to make certain that if you work internet leads, you're right on top of them and you have a system to do so. That lead center program, you have a way of turning it on a couple of different ways. You can do a live transfer, or you can do leads that are funneled strictly into your database. All of them are going to be in there so you can work them properly, but it's a way for you then to designate, this is my budget on what I want to spend on these leads. Are they on sale this week? Some of them are, depending upon, remember, there's supply and demand that comes into play here. Am I going to do it in that fashion? How often am I going to set time out for my calendar to handle a live response, a live transfer? So some different things that can come into play, but you control that flow and the cost of the program. Great leads through multiple sources. That T65 locator, this is another program that you download to your smartphone, your laptop, your desktop, smart device, whatever it happens to be. You register, they see that you have a contract with us. Once again, JJ Walker, it's free. You can put in different parameters, and in an area, well, you can still door knock for med subs if you wanted to. So let's say you stacked appointments in a particular area, one canceled. You're defining where people are in your target audience. We're looking at 68 to 70-year-olds, 72-year-olds in this particular market with these premium parameters. Where do they live? This is going to tell you. So it gives you the opportunity to market in that circumstance. And once again, even though we talk about referral programs being so much a part of the selling process, it's also part on engaging our book of business. So remember that CRM that's in the Medicare Center or whatever CRM you're using, you're dialing through it and you're saying, hey, Mr. Client, I want to thank you for the business that you've done with me in the past. I have a really, really competitive dental program that's come to my attention recently. And I wondered if you knew of other people that are in need of such of a program. Majority of the time, they're going to say, well, I know of one person, that might be me. So it's a great way for you to engage your book of business and reference the referrals, get the referrals based on demand products or whatever it happens to be, plus work that book. We do all this because we want the opportunity to work with you. We want your business. We want to be referable to you, your agent friends, your compadres within the industry. Talk to them about us and the systems and the programs that we offer, because, well, we're asking you to, plain and simple, and we appreciate it. These are programs too that are fairly simple for you to integrate into your personal marketing plan very quickly. There's only one MedSup that requires any certification. And if you're taking out that contract, you probably already have it in play anyway. It's not an excuse for, gee, I'll do that tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. It's the old John Wayne line out of the movies, the Cowboys, that I paraphrase. Slap a piece of bacon in that biscuit, saddle up, let's ride. We're burning daylight. You can do it quickly. You can add programs. You can add carriers. You can look at some of the things that might modify your marketing plan for 2023. I'd say the remainder of this year, but we've got what, 9 days? Hey, one day is a grand opportunity. I thank the Lord above for every new day that we have. All that said and done, I want to check really quickly. Yes, we've addressed the questions. For those of you that have done business with us in the past and you're looking at this as to, okay, how can I systematically address this market? You've worked with Premier, you've done business with us. Thank you. Appreciate that business. We look to deepen that relationship as we can as well. For those of you that are new to us and are looking at this as to, gee, what do these guys have to offer? Can they help me? Thank you for investigating that opportunity. We look to see how we can be a key component of your success moving forward. But for anybody who's viewing this presentation, I want to thank you right here and now for your time in doing so. It's run a little longer than I usually go, but I thank you for that time and that investment of your most precious resource, your time. And until we're able to visit again and spend more time together, I thank you and I wish you good selling. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.